Oh, yes, let's get it recorded as well. So again, hello everyone. My name is Johnny. Most of you probably know me as the co-founder and CEO of Flow Security, a data security platform. But today we're going to talk about something completely different. And the main idea of this kind of webinar, or even I can say talk, is to provide you some of my vision of what is currently happening in Israel and in Gaza from my perspective. I will share that some things that I guess most of you don't know is that beside my entrepreneur hat as a founder and my cybersecurity experience, also I have background in public policy. I've done my master's in that. Also, I'm a big history fan, especially in this area of the Middle East. And besides that, also I come from a very Zionist family. I was born in Israel, but my parents moved to Israel from Argentina, in which both sides of my family were quite Zionist. My grandfather was actually one of the founding team here in Israel and led many Jewish communities in Argentina. So I have that part of me as well. And the next 55 minutes, what I wanted to do is to share with you a bit from firsthand. I'm sure that most of you are seeing or hearing many things in the news about what is happening in the area, which is very active in the last few weeks, unfortunately. And what I would like to do is to do some kind of a combination, both sharing a bit from my angle, my personal experience of what is happening in Israel, and also sharing a bit about the region as a whole. Also maybe explain a bit about the conflict, the way that I see it, some history, what is happening, where can we go from here, etc. Of course, I am biased because I am on one side of that conflict. However, I'll do my best to be as objective as I can, to give information the way that I see it, that are based more than anything on facts. What I would ask from you is to be active. You have quite a few options to do that. One is asking a question in the chat, but even better than that, if you want to ask something, I'll be very glad to, if you can raise your hand. And by doing that, we'll give you the ability to actually open your microphone, ask a question, and I'll be glad to answer that. Maybe I'll start by doing an overview, like 10 minutes of what is happening, how I see it currently. But then after that, we can go to an ask me anything kind of session. And when I say ask me anything, I honestly mean it. I mean, when I talk about ask me anything, I really think that you can ask me anything about my personal views, about how I see the conflict, even tricky questions about the future. Really feel comfortable. There are no wrong questions, I'll put it this way. And now I see that one of the questions is that chat seems to be disabled. Actually, it's not a bug, it's a feature, it's okay. There's no chat between the participants, but when you ask a question, I definitely can see it, as you can understand here, and I'll be glad to answer those. So let's get right to it. A bit about what is happening currently in Israel. I mean, I won't start by going all the way back historically about the conflict. I mean, I can get there if you wish, if you will ask me to in a second, but I can say that, of course, it's very conflictive, very painful. I mean, there's a very painful conflict between Hamas and Israel, or generally speaking, between Palestinian people and Israel. However, I can say that in the last few years, or at least in the last year, there were some things that were happening that built some trust between both sides. There was a peak, the biggest number of Palestinians, like people from Gaza, that went to work inside Israel and back every single day, over 20,000 employees a day. Also, I guess you're familiar with some of the peace accords on normalization that Israel is going through in the last few years. And the main one that is now being in process is with Saudi Arabia, which is something that I'm very glad to see. So there was, I can say that at least from my perspective, there was a lot of I know, hope that something can get better in the near future. However, 2.5 weeks ago, in Saturday, that will always be remembered here in Israel, I personally woke up to a siren, that missile alert of missiles being shot from Gaza to Tel Aviv, a very big amount of them. This is something that honestly we are quite familiar with, because in the last few years, every time there is kind of a more conflictive time, there are some missiles being shot from Gaza. But then as the day unfolded, we started seeing that this is something that is different. And what happened, I'm saying that the question, will the recording be sent? Yes, I'll be glad to share that with you. So what happened that Saturday is that suddenly all Israel started to understand that something is happening in the south. And what was happening was that between 1,500 to 2,000 of terrorists, Hamas terrorists, infiltrated Israel in many different ways. One is cutting the fence, just running inside towards Israel, and also going through with vehicles, some intense through the sea, and some even with paragliding into Israel. And that was extremely successful, unfortunately. And then just a massacre started. What today we understand, over 1,500 Israelis were murdered, the big majority of them civilians, some of them in their own homes, in very peaceful villages that are next to Gaza. Many of them were murdered in a big music festival that took place only a few miles from the border with Gaza. But beside that, also atrocities started to unfold. And I don't want to be too graphic here, but I can say that whole families were murdered, from babies to elderly. Some women were raped, some people were beheaded, including children. And beside that, also many people were kidnapped back to Gaza. Today, the number is 220, more or less. And again, big range of people from the age of 9 months, if I remember correctly, the youngest kidnapped person, all the way to over 90, like a Holocaust survivor of 90 years old, that are still being kept in Gaza to this point. There was a big shock, of course, in Israel. Something that started to understand that this is something that is different. And maybe to all the US-based people here, I can say that some people compare it to 9/11, what 9/11 is to the US. But actually, if you look at the numbers, I would say it's more like 9/11 to New York City. Because of the number of people that were murdered, and we are a very small country, of course, everyone, including myself, know several people that were seriously impacted. And there's so many stories that just the heart cannot hold anymore. I'll give you like one very small example, someone that's very close to me, that a very good friend of mine from 10 years old, she was in a kibbutz, a small village next to Gaza, with her husband and her newborn, a 1-month-old baby, when they understood that there might be terrorists in the village. So they went to a shelter, and they managed to close the door very firmly, but they didn't close the window firmly enough. So they managed to enter through the window. And while her husband was fighting terrorists, she took the baby outside to find another place to hide. And she did find a place, another shelter of another family that was well locked. She was there for 25 hours without any food to give to the baby, without food for herself, and with big uncertainty with what happened to her husband. And that even when she managed to leave that shelter, for 3 whole days, she didn't know what was the fate of her husband, and she was hoping that he was kidnapped. This is
what was the reality, because there were only two options. And unfortunately, after those 3 days, they found his. And this is one out of thousands, literally thousands of stories that are heartbreaking for any Israeli hearing that. And also that comes with a lot of anger, more than anything, with Hamas. And I can say also, and here I'm speaking on a personal level, as a person that always seeks peace, and I think that everyone everywhere, the main they want is to look for peace. And I was very happy with a lot of the also gate opening for people that work in Gaza, that were from Gaza working in Israel. And I felt that there might be a chance to open up to a lot of trust between the two people. And also the peace treaty with Saudi Arabia also should have included major progress with the Palestinian people. But then, I mean, this is exactly the biggest nightmare of Hamas. This is a terrorist group that the only thing that they want is to kill people and to kill every chance for peaceful living. Their only goal is to vanish Israel from the map. They're not interested in any kind of solving the issue, having a state of Palestine next to the state of Israel. They want one state between the river to the sea. And that is very, very painful. And of course, this is unacceptable for Israel. So I think that just like when the West decided to eradicate ISIS, and when the West decided to eradicate after 9/11 the Taliban, and this is something that is very similar to what is happening now. But currently, Israel is attacking very seriously Gaza, mainly aiming for Hamas people. The idea is to eradicate them. But of course, that it also there's also a lot of collateral damage, meaning a lot of civilians in Gaza that are being killed on a daily basis, and that is of course very painful. And now Israel is in a situation that, on one hand, it wants to eradicate Hamas. On the other hand, main goal is also to bring all the hostages back home, which is a big challenge, of course, as you can imagine. And with all of that, also that starts a lot of tension in the area in general. Countries surrounding Israel, some of them are starting. I mean, Hamas wants everyone to attack Israel at the same time. We have in the Lebanon Hezbollah, which is another terrorist group that is in Lebanon. There are some Iranian militia groups in Syria, some in Iraq, and even in Yemen, the Houthis. And what is happening now is that there is a lot of tension from all of those frontiers. It's not there's no full-blown war, and I'm very glad that this is the situation at this point. But missiles are being shot on a daily basis, also from Lebanon. It's not the numbers from Gaza. From Gaza, I think that we passed already the 5,000 missiles from the unfolding of these events. But still, there are a few a day from Hezbollah. Yesterday, we had a few missiles from Syria, and 2 days ago, also from Yemen. So yes, it's a very interesting neighborhood, I would say, as a whole. However, I think that I would say the goal currently of Israel, and I think this is something that is very clear, and I know that it's very difficult, especially in war times, to hear that and to understand what exactly is happening. But the main declared goal of Israel is at first eradicate Hamas, to disarm Hamas, to make it impossible again to shoot over Israel, either by missiles or to do anything that is similar to what has happened before on that Black Saturday that we had. And second is, of course, getting all the hostages back home.
And what I can say also, and here I'm saying a bit about my personal feelings and beliefs, is that this is a very complex conflict. Here I will say a few things that, let's start with some things that some assumptions, I'll put it this way. Because there are some people that don't believe that Israel has the right to exist. So I take the assumption that, I believe that Israel has the right to exist, that it is important. I'm a Zionist. I believe that the Jewish people not only have the right for self-definition and to have their own country, their own state, but also they have the right to defend ourselves. We have the right to defend ourselves. This is one assumption. And the second assumption is that both people, either the Jewish people in Israel, the Israelis, nor the Palestinians, are going anywhere. So we will have to find a way to live together and to live peacefully one with each other. And the way to see it is that those terrorist groups like Hamas doing atrocities against civilians and using Palestinians as human shields, shooting missiles from hospitals, shooting missiles from schools, and wanting to make as much damage as possible. I see them as the enemies of both Israelis and Palestinians that want to live together, that want to live peacefully for our families, to eat the same food, hummus and falafel, things that we like, and to talk about things like data security rather than on what is happening. And for me, it is heartbreaking, and it is very hard for that. I'm saying that there are a few questions, so maybe I stop here for a second. Yes, so I'm saying here that there are some questions about the tech aspect, and actually, you know what, I will talk about that because I am the CEO of Israeli startup, and I guess many people, if you ask, how does that affect the businesses in Israel, or should that be a concern to work with Israeli companies? I can say that it is difficult times for Israel. However, generally speaking, with the history of the Jewish people, we always have prevailed and we will prevail. We see what is currently happening as a very painful part of the conflict and a war that we have to win. But on the same time, the reason that we are here, or what gives us the biggest push forward, is to live normal life. And I think that as a whole in Israel, something that is happening, which is the nice part that I don't know if you see it from the outside, is the fact that so many Israelis are being united in helping each other. You can see people that are volunteering to help people in the south that were more seriously impacted, but also helping each other in any way that is possible, which is something that really is beautiful to see. But beside that, we are doing our best to keep the normality as much as possible. And if someone has any doubt, we have everything that we need with the ability to serve our customers, to serve our partners, and to work. I wouldn't say business as usual, because it's not exactly as usual, but we are continuing to serve as much as we can, and everyone from our customers, from our partners, from our investors, and some of, I can see here in the list, some of you know what I'm talking about, will get the same value that we are providing, and we have always had, and we always will. I see here another question about whether there are like resilient. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm struggling here with the questions. Okay, now I can see. Yeah, I can see Bob is asking, you can feel that the sentiment is changing. You see more and more news showing the Palestinians and what they are going through. I would say a few words about the word opinion as a whole. This is something that is also very painful, historically speaking, for every Israeli.
I'll start by saying that I'm a true believer of free speech. I think this is great that there are many different opinions. And even though that, again, I am biased, even by the fact that I believe that there should be a Jewish state, that already put me in a position that I can be criticized. And I think that is okay. I think that historically speaking, a lot of the world media, especially in Europe, but also sometimes in the States, were very showing the Palestinian side more than anything. And I think in one way it makes sense because I think there's no doubt that Israel is the stronger side. And usually when there is a conflict, it's much easier to feel, I don't know, to support the last powerful side. However, what I'm also hearing, and I'm hearing like there were manifests in Europe and in the US shouting from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. And I'm kind of thinking to myself, are these people really understand what are they shouting? They're shouting that we should be in the sea or in the river. I mean, this is exactly the meaning of it. And this is something that that is shameful. And also another thing is that it's not black or white. I mean, it's not you either support Israel or you support the whole Palestinian people. And I think that for me, it's insane, given the atrocities and what Hamas is doing, to not condemn very seriously and very decisively what Hamas is doing, because I think that any person, doesn't matter which side they support, if they support a peaceful future for the region, I think this is something that everyone should condemn Hamas and support that. I'm seeing here a nice question. What's the best way for people abroad to show support to Israel? What is most helpful right now? Even that question touched me. I mean, I think this is very nice to hear. I've received dozens of mails of some support, but some just asking if we're safe and if we are okay. By the way, the question is, we might be safe, but we're definitely not okay. We're heartbroken. But this type of mails of support mean the world to me, mean the world for every single Israeli. And I think this is something that I encourage you to do, to reach out to Israelis and show your support. This is, I think, the first thing. But the second, I mean, I understand that this is a complex conflict. What I can ask for people to do is, I mean, condemn Hamas. I think this is something that is quite obvious, but also to show your support also abroad. I think this is something that is important. I wouldn't say support Israel blindly. It is okay also to criticize things about Israel, but I think that now that also the war is still going on, and it is a big, and it's still very warm, there are also a lot of tension when people talk. This is something that we also will. I already hear a lot of people talking about the right of Israel to exist, and looking at Hamas as freedom fighters rather than terrorists. This is something that I will ask you to talk wisely about that. I'm continuing with another question. What about the stance on some superpowers like United Arab Emirates and Egypt in the region? What about a possible discussion around peace negotiation? It is tricky for sure. I will say that I think that all the countries in the region, especially Arab countries, has a crucial power on solving this conflict. And what was happening up until October 7, when all these events unfolded, this was exactly what was happening. We were seeing normalization between Israel with United Arab Emirates, with Bahrain, with Morocco, with Sudan, with more and more Muslim and Arab countries, which sites that I didn't think, I wasn't believing that I would see. Israeli tourists in Dubai, people from Dubai visiting Israel. This is wonderful. This is for me something that is part of the bigger Israeli Arab conflict that can be solved, and through that, I believe that there can be more and more trust with also the Palestinian people. But this is not the time for that at this point. This is the point where Israel has to eradicate the ISIS-like Hamas and to make sure that the safety of the Israeli people will maintain. And the day after that, I hope that we will be able to go back to building trust and building the future that I hope that everyone in the area, both in Israel, in the Palestinian areas, and in the region as a whole, deserve. And what else? Some more questions. I'm seeing here that there were some people talking about, that if they were younger, they would have volunteered to the army. I'm glad to see that. Okay, so here an interesting question. How do you justify IDF killing 7,000 Palestinians? Half of them are children. This is terrorism. This is genocide and ethnic cleaning of the indigenous Palestinian people. So I will say that my heart breaks for every people that lose their lives, especially civilians and of course children as well. However, after this type of terrorist attack, I don't think that anyone has any. I don't think that anyone thinks that Israel doesn't have the right to prevent these attacks from happening. I understand the anger from that question, and I understand also the hard wording about terrorism and genocide and ethnicity cleansing. But I don't agree with any of those definitions. Israel, of course, is not doing any of ethnic cleaning, and I don't think that there is any doubt that what Israel is doing is the right to defend herself. And I don't think that there is any country in the world, after this type of attacks on their own country, I don't think that someone believes that Israel doesn't have the right to respond. I really hope that this type of rounds of conflicts, of armed conflicts, of killing will be stopped. I hope someday to visit. I heard that Lebanon is amazing. There are many very nice places in every site in the region, and I hope that we'll get there. But again, this is not the time for it at the moment. I do understand the pain of that, and I feel that as well, but this is not the time at the moment. Currently, Israel has to eradicate the threat on it, has to do the best that we can in order to bring back our civilians, our people that are being kidnapped, they're being held there, etc. Another question that I see here. Okay, this is more like a professional question. About with now 300 people called up and even more on standby, I guess for reserve duty, many of our Israeli clients have expressed a slowdown in expansion this year into Q1. What do you see or expect? Maybe something here that was mentioning, I don't know if everyone knows, but in Israel, there is a mandatory military service of 3 years for men, 2 years for women. Everyone in the age of 18 do the serve in the army. However, after that military service is being done, people can be called on reserve duty in situations where they are required, and needless to say that this is one of those situations. So how does that affect the market or the economy? I can say that, of course, it does have an effect. This is true. Many companies, including Flow Security, including flow security, has around between 20 to 40% of his force on reserve duty. And of course, it does have implications. However, I can say that on the same time, we're kind of used to it, honestly speaking. And I cannot speak by the name of every Israeli company, but we actually continue business as usual. We work with customers that some of them were renewing, now running a few POC, proof of concepts, with new customers. And we didn't change anything in our schedule. Maybe some features that we plan to deploy on Q4 were postponed to Q1, but that's about it. And I mean, I don't see, even if there is like a tactical kind of change or impact on the economy, there is no change strategically speaking. I don't see any long-term effect on the economy. Another question here, how was Israel so taken by surprise? I can't believe it. What about all your intelligence? How did you guys have such a colossal failure? That is very painful. But it is true. This is one of the biggest failures in the military intelligence in the history of Israel, which did take us by surprise. How that can happen? Well, here I can also speak professionally because this is what I've done in my military service. I was in the intelligence unit, so I guess I'm part here of the responsibility and one to blame. What I can say is, as there's a constant threat all the time, it's just very difficult to maintain high guard all the time. This is something that Israel will have to investigate to understand how that happened, because something like that, the last time it happened, it was in Yom Kippur War in 73, over 50 years ago. So this is definitely something that doesn't happen often to Israel. So I don't have all the answers of how exactly that happened, but I can say that I think that Hamas took advantage of the fact that there was building of trust in both sides. And this is something also that is very painful to me as a peaceful looking person. Just to give you an example, as I said, over 20,000 of people from Gaza citizens went to work in Israel every single day. And some of them did it also in the kibbutz, in some kibbutz, in some villages next to Gaza. There was one, and this is something that I know because I know people that were impacted in that village. One of them went with a note mapping very precisely which house, how many men are there, where there are big dogs, where you should be aware of, and you should take care of when you manage to do that massacre. And these are people that took some information because of they were working every single day in those villages. So I think that as Israel was caught off guard because of some hope that both sides had for a peaceful future. So this is something that I can say that unfortunately this is the case. Here I'm seeing some more questions, some concern about casualties. Casualties that might happen if we are to enter to Gaza. Yes, you are right. I mean, this is a big threat that we have, and again, I mean, even if I did know what was the tactics of Israel, I wouldn't have shared it here. But I can say that always Israel is doing its best to keep as less casualties as possible, both in the Palestinian side, but also within Israel. And I guess that this is what they will do this case as well. I see here another question about the military service. I understand the military service is mandatory. How do you feel
serving that? And that's a good question. I always get that from people abroad, thinking that, oh, it's mandatory. I guess that no one wants to do it. What do you think about that? I will say that I don't like the fact that we are in a reality in which mandatory military service is required. I wish, I'm looking here at my nephews, and every kid that I see here in the streets of Tel Aviv, and something that always people Israelis say to young children is that I wish then that when you get to 18 years old, there will be no army because there will be no need to. However, this is not the case. And given the fact that this is not the case, I'm honored. I was honored to do my military service. And I think by saying that, I'm representing most Israelis, most people in Israel. This is, there's a feeling of that if there will be no IDF, no Israeli Defense Force, there will be no Israel. And anyone that believes that Israel has the right to exist, I think that up until I was 18 years old, I've seen the soldiers as the people that protect our right to live peacefully, to live in our own country. After thousands of years of anti-Semitism, and after Jewish people didn't feel safe anywhere in the world. So then when I got to be 18 years old, it was my turn. And this is something that I was very honored and I was very proud of doing. So I'm very glad about that. Very specific question. If the cyber attack conference in Israel in January be canceled, I don't know. It really depends on what exactly is happening and how that will unfold. Hopefully by January, it will be safe again and we will be able to see all of you in Tel Aviv to the biggest Israeli cybersecurity conference. But I think it's too soon to tell. Another question, concerns of Iran getting involved and the war spilling over into the greater region. Iran already is involved. Hamas is using Iranian techniques. Iran is the #1 provider of money and weapons to Hezbollah in the north. Iran's arm in Yemen are the Houthis that also sent missiles. So Iran involvement isn't a hypothetical question. It's already happening. I guess that you are asking about more direct conflict with Iran, the fact that they can, they control, doing an attack, missile attack or anything like that directly on Israel. I will say that I see that not too likely. Luckily, it's not out of the question, unfortunately, but it's not likely. Another thing is the support of countries in the world, in the free world, especially the United States of America. I think there are big insurance that we have, and that backing us up is very significant for us, and they are reducing the risk for something like that happening. This is exactly the next question. Do Israelis really believe that the United States has their back? I do. I think that the alliance that Israel has with the United States is unshakable. And I've no words. It's just, most of the people here are based in the United States. I can tell you directly how thankful I am and how grateful I am to that support that comes all the way from your President Joe Biden with an amazing speech 2 weeks ago, and also backing up with support, with military support and financial support to Israel, but it goes all the way down to you, people, US citizens that support us, being our voice. And this is very, it's not only amazing for us. I think you're doing great service for the entire world that looking for peaceful life, democratic life, and liberty everywhere. Another question. Is multi-front conflict a buzzword or a scary tactics covered by news channels? Or is that a possibility being considered as preparation take place? It's a continuation to the question from before. I will say that everything that you hear in the news, reduce that by 30 to 50%. And the reason is that even if there are two sides that don't want to get into a conflict, always the right thing to do is to show strength and to show that if you are to go to a conflict, then you will win. A good example, I think, it's in the north front of Israel, that there is a lot of tension between Israel and Hezbollah. If you ask me, none of the sides want to don't want that to unfold as well. Lebanon, this is another topic, another area, but they are suffering from a big economic crisis at the moment. Most people in the street care about Palestinian people and care about what is happening, but they care more of bringing bread at the end of the day. And Hezbollah has a lot to lose because of that. If they are to start open a war against Israel and lose, and there will be casualties in Lebanon, and there will be even bigger economic crisis, then the power of Hezbollah within Lebanon will be less, will be harmed very seriously. And needless to say that Israel doesn't want any conflict when unnecessary, especially now that we are very focused on eradicate Hamas in Gaza. So I will say that it's not only a buzzword and it's not exaggerated per se 100%, but it is at least a little bit exaggerated because of that. I see here correct. I don't know about what, but I am glad that I said something that is correct. Yeah, well, I see here, I understand there are people here that are, I would say, big, that are against Israel or against the right of Israel to exist. I will say that I will be very happy to answer any question, even if they are of the other side. But if people here will use words that are inappropriate, I will just ignore the questions. So I invite you to keep asking even complicated questions, but not that. Some more questions. There is a question here. Does Israel ever violated a Geneva law of war? I can say that Israel very oftenly is being accused of violating Geneva law of war, and same for Palestinians. For example, shooting missiles over civilians in a way that is not, not aiming for military bases, but on civilians is also a violation of Geneva law of war. I can say that most accusations against Israel usually are just being completely false in many aspects. This is also something that was proven over and over again. To be honest, there might be, I know that there are some, or if I look at the biggest Geneva law of war, for example, targeting civilians, I know that Israel had never violated that as far as I know. There are some small parts of the law of usage of certain materials in war that I know that are under debate, that Israel is using some type of bombs that in some countries are considered illegal, but not a widespread law of war, which is something that Israel sometimes are being accused. Okay, there's a long question here, but I will take that. As you might recall, we work mostly for Israeli startups, helping with recruitment. Never like the past 2 weeks have we seen so much shocking, open anti-Semitic comments when recruiting of these companies. Can they back out? What can we all do to deal with this from your side? Yeah, I appreciate that. I can say that
also maybe I'll take the question also to another direction, more personal level, but then I will also answer your question. You're right that what is happening now, generally speaking, is something that for the Jewish people is the most painful, like the biggest fear that we can have. After thousands of years that the Jewish people has been persecuted wherever we went, after so many occasions where people went into villages and killed Jews only because of they were Jews, and of course the biggest part of it, or the peak of it, was the Holocaust, in which systematically 6 million Jews were gassed, were killed in many different ways. What happened 3 weeks ago in Israel, this is exactly bringing us that trauma back again, that those images of atrocities being done to Jewish people, of parents protecting their own children. Sorry, I mean, there are, like, just to get an idea, 30 children were left parentless after Saturday from 2 weeks ago. One of them, which is 4 years old, currently is being held hostage in Gaza. So, I mean, this is the type of things that are as painful as you can imagine, as people, as a religion. And also, of course, the fact that we see a rise of anti-Semitism. There can be criticizing of how Israel operates, that Israel should operate differently. This is the type of criticism that I think is completely legitimate, and I think this is good, that everyone has the right of speech. But we also see a rise of pure anti-Semitism, pure hatred for being Jewish. And this is something that is not only painful, but also unacceptable. And I understand the president asked that is a partner of many Israeli startups. I guess that you felt that as well. I wish that I had a good advice to give you. This is exactly what we live almost constantly, and in these type of conflicts, even more than ever. I can say that I hope that this is something that is temporal, like very temporal. This is something that soon will be ended, and then we will start to get to the flames will lower as well. If someone that and this is something that luckily I personally didn't feel in the last 2 weeks, but if someone doesn't want to work with me because of my religion, because of the country where I am, because of my beliefs, I don't have a lot of things to do with that. I can say that on personal level, even though that we do have enemies and also vicious enemies. When I meet people in conferences, people from Iran, people from Gaza, people from anywhere, I mean, any country that you would consider as an enemy, I'm always open to talk and to hear the other side. For me, it's an opportunity to do that. And of course, I will never avoid doing business of people just because where they're all from. Another question here: do you feel that Hamas is letting hostages go one by one to stall Israel from going on? This is definitely one option. I don't think that they do it for because they are humane and they want to help people. Also, when you hear also maybe people here don't know, there are currently 222, if I remember correctly, hostages being kept in Gaza, and 4 of them were released. 2 of them 3 days ago with U.S. citizenship, and another 2 yesterday. And by hearing their evidences, no, it's not for humane causes. Of course, this is tactical gain that they have. I think one of them is to make to stall Israel from going in. This is one option. Another thing is, as they are releasing, they released some of them that had like
that they were actually American citizens, they also do that to release some pressure that they might have from the US media, etc. Another question here: with the flights being canceled by many airlines, is this making it difficult to interact with companies that wish to visit or startups to travel to visit opportunities? There are two sides of it: people that come here to visit and us going out. I will say that even though that you can come if you want, I think that most people that are not used to the situation of war will prefer not coming here. And yes, there are some people that I was supposed to meet here in Israel that cancel their arrival, but the other way doesn't work that way. I mean, I can travel, and I am planning to travel to the US soon. And one of the only good things that COVID did was that it gives us all the ability to do a lot of things without meeting face to face that wouldn't have been possible before that. So most of my meetings anyway are being held face to face. Being held by Zoom. But in the ones that face to face, I guess that will start to happen more and more as this is getting more solved. I'm getting here a lot of messages of support, and again, I cannot say it really means the world to me. So thank you so much for that. We have, well, actually 2 more minutes. So I think maybe this is a good point to wrap up. I can say that all of you, I guess, have my contact. So if there's anything else that you want to ask or that I didn't mention, if you want to correct me about something that I said that is wrong, please feel free to reach out. Maybe the only thing that I can say to wrap this up is that, yes, this is a shock for Israel. And yes, we are heartbroken. There's no more accurate term that I can say. However, here I can speak for any Israeli. We feel more than ever the courage and the energy that we need in order to fight for our right to live here, to live in Israel, to live as a Jewish state, to live peacefully. And I would say something, I will quote a prime minister here in Israel, that we will fight as if there's no chance for peace, and we will fight for peace as if there is no war. And I think this is maybe a good summary of our approach. When it's time to fight, and currently, after what happened to my country, this is our time to fight, and we will win, and we will eradicate Hamas, and hopefully will eliminate that threat over Israel. And at the same time, right after that, we'll continue, as always, to fight for our right to peace as well, and to live peacefully with our neighbors, and to bring as much peace and liberty to as many people in the region as possible. Thank you so much for everyone. I'm really glad that you could be here. Your attendance is very valuable. And I'll be glad to contact you and answer any of your questions if you can reach out personally. Thank you very much. Have a peaceful night.